have the absolute pleasure and privilege of moderating this panel with 6 amazing superstar agency leaders from city, state, and federal agencies who all work in Jamaica Bay. Before I introduce them, let me introduce what we're about to talk about for the next hour or so in this panel. This is about their overlapping yet distinct roles and responsibilities in Jamaica Bay. The conversation is about how these public agencies and the colleagues and amazing public servants they work with are addressing the complex challenges of coastal stewardship and community benefit within this multi-jurisdictional environment. These 6 panelists will share insights from their evolving roles in collaborative restoration and long-term resource management, innovation within their areas of practice, and inspiring stewardship stories, practices, or projects that we all can learn from. With that, let me introduce our amazing panelists. And again, a reminder, their full biographies are available through the QR code that's in the program or posted around the room in various places, or again, jbrpc.org/State of the Bay, all one word. Okay, so let's see, I will go from my right and go down the line. Jackie Wu is a marine biologist with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And then we have Leslie Wright, who is the New York City Regional Director for New York State Parks. Lisa Barron is the Programs and Project Manager, Civil Works Branch with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And we have Patti Rafferty, who's the Resource Stewardship Division Manager for the National Park Service here at Gateway National Recreation Area. We have Kathryn Prybylski, who is the Assistant Commissioner for Bureau of Coastal Resilience at the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. And last but definitely not least is Marit Larson, who is the Assistant Commissioner for Natural Resources and Planning at New York City Parks. Can we give them all a round of applause? I love that. Resounding applause. They deserve it. All right, we're going to jump right in. The first question, each of the panelists is going to answer in turn. They will share a couple of slides by way of, or in a way of introducing themselves and also responding to this question. This conference is all about innovation and action in Jamaica Bay. What is the most innovative project your agency has or is implemented or is implementing in Jamaica Bay? What makes it innovative? This could be a novel or innovative use of technology, like some of the talks we heard earlier this morning, or a new twist on an old practice. And we're going to kick it off with Lisa to go first.
Thank you. All right, so I just started off because we were supposed to also introduce our agency and what we do here at the Corps of Engineers. And I know you probably won't be able to see the slides, but if you're familiar, some of you are very familiar with the 3-ring slide, which talks about all the different things that the Corps of Engineers does through the whole harbor. And we always talk about basically developing a world-class harbor estuary, and in this case, we're focused on Jamaica Bay, making that world-class, and focusing on not only the environmental restoration, which I'm the project manager for the restoration program at the district, implementing a lot of restoration projects there, but also the navigation as well we do, maintain the channels, the federal channel, as well as trying to marry up the programs with beneficial use of dredge material, which is not very innovative but incredibly important, that the Corps tries to utilize our dredge material in our navigation program. And I'm going to focus on, I think that the most innovative projects are our marsh islands. And we've restored 5 of the marsh islands so far historically, but they also just they provide so many benefits, and in turn we have another circle of what the Corps does and deals with flood risk management, coastal resiliency, and they're so important, serving as barrier islands. And I'm going to quickly talk about our marsh islands. Should I go through the 3 slides? Yeah. All right. So the second slide, I just wanted to say the Hudson River and Estuary Restoration Program. I think that was stemming out of our comprehensive restoration plan, innovative in itself, where I think there's not that many regions that have a comprehensive restoration plan, and you're going to see also unlocking some additional funds from the Senate recently, but being able to restore so many projects, and we just had 20 restoration projects authorized in 2020, and we've had an influx of projects moving forward. And not only, there's about 8 of the 20 projects that are moving forward in the design phase, but in Jamaica Bay alone, I bolded the ones that are in Jamaica Bay, but highlighting this is, there's lots of projects that are going on in Jamaica Bay, not only for under the Hudson River Estuary Program, like our marsh islands that we are designing now, Stony Creek and Duck Point, but also Fresh Creek, and I've got highlighted in various stages, Spring Creek North, which is just starting, innovative project and their replacement advancing. But I think from an innovation standpoint of the marsh islands, this is an opportunity that we've gotten to do a lot of sampling and hydrodynamic modeling, and being able to really pinpoint where the restoration, where the protected features and shoreline features, and I was so excited to see your presentation, Leonard, because we're looking at matrix and other types of shoreline features like that, so we can look at what kind of levels of protection we need at various parts of the island and move that forward. So at the end of the day, when we build these marsh islands, they're successful, the sand stays there, and we do it in the most ecologically friendly way rather than those historical means.
Our mission is to protect, restore, and care for and expand New York City's open space, nature, tree canopy, for ecological and social health and resiliency. And we have, let's see if I can go forward. We have 30,000 acres of, I'm not sure if I went forward. Yes. All right, 30,000 acres of parkland that we protect, about 14,000 of which is natural area. And of that, a good part of it is wetlands. We manage half of the city's total wetland acreage, and this work is important, especially important in Jamaica Bay, where we have over 2,000 acres of wetlands, tidal creeks, coastal upland forests, and miles of unarmored shoreline. We also have over a third of our forever wild sites here in Jamaica Bay, which are our most ecologically valuable natural areas. The 18, going in the wrong direction, sorry, forever wild area parks in Jamaica Bay are sites where we've conducted monitoring, vegetation maintenance, management and restoration across hundreds of acres with partners on projects of all types and various scales, some of the biggest being with Army Corps of Engineers, and many smaller being with Jamaica Bay-Rockaway Conservancy and the Natural Areas Conservancy and Littoral Society and many others. As outlined in our 2021 wetlands management framework for New York City, we've identified additional restoration opportunities across Jamaica Bay, and these sites are where restoration needs and actions include removing fill, addressing unwanted plant species management, addressing stormwater management, debris removal, all depending on what the site history and ongoing stressors are. Our restoration and stewardship work in Jamaica Bay fundamentally requires us to have a really solid foundation of native vegetation, and for that we're really fortunate to have our own plant ecology center and nursery on Staten Island with a satellite seed farm on the at Floyd Bennett Field, where we grow dozens of species of coastal forbs and grasses, and have innovated in that area over the last 10 years in particular. We've also produced hundreds of species of native plants for restoration at our Staten Island location, and in particular bring Spartina and alternate flora to sites, restoration sites in the Bay. And we're currently working on restoration projects around Jamaica Bay that are innovative for us, but also for the location, the sites that we're working on. The sites that where we're expanding new approaches to living shorelines, for example, are at the Rockaway Community Park. We're also for the first time restoring salt marsh at small lot-sized locations where there were formerly houses, particularly in Old Howard Beach where there was destruction due to Hurricane Sandy. And at Hook Creek, as Lisa mentioned, we are exploring the use of, we successfully initiated a project using thin layer replacement of sand, and we're expanding that approach to restoring degraded marsh that's converting to mudflat across Idlewild and then at Spring Creek. So the way in which that we're always advancing our restoration approaches is through ongoing assessment of our ecological systems. And around the city and at Jamaica Bay, we've studied approaches, we've studied the way in which marsh migration is likely to happen, what kind of management we need to do to facilitate that. And we've just completed and are initiating our second decadal ecosystem assessment, both for salt marshes and for coastal forests. And this work we're always trying to improve our technological capacity, whether with GPS or RPZ equipment that can help us really accurately survey on the ground and assess elevations. So this work also continues to require really close coordination with our stewards and our partners. And that's a way in which we're also kind of expanding and innovating is the kind of grants and kind of funding we're bringing to programs in Jamaica Bay. So that's another aspect of innovation that I'm sure we'll talk about more.
Yeah, Kathryn.
So I've been at DEP in the Bureau of Coastal Resilience since January. And the thing is, our Bureau is quite new. It's about a year and a half old. The city decided, essentially, many folks may know that the management of the city's coastal defense systems are kind of disparate across different agencies. And so the city decided a couple years ago that to kind of relook at this and then consolidate all of that work into one operational agency. And so the city looked to DEP as an operating agency to house the management of the maintenance and operations of our coastal defense systems around the city. And so we are, like I said, we're relatively new. Our Bureau's mission and mandate is here on the slide. And it's protecting our city's 520 miles of coastline, of which Jamaica Bay is a significant number of miles. I don't know how many, if someone does, please tell me later. Thank you. I did know it was 44 square miles, but that is not miles of coastline. And so our mandate is determining, then managing that coastal threat for our entire city's coastline. The solutions and practices across the city are going to be very varied and will lead innovation. It obviously has to respond to the local neighborhoods, the shoreline's ecology and the local neighborhood. So, right backwards is forwards. So these are the projects around the city for coastal defense. And so our Bureau is not managing the design and construction of those directly. It's still across a couple of disparate agencies, but the infrastructure itself we turned over to our Bureau for managing for maintenance and operations and then deployment in a coastal storm. We had the first set of flood walls and gates at Eastside Coastal Resilience in Lower Manhattan turned over just earlier this year. And then many of you know the Army Corps work, so our Bureau is the point for the city for managing and supporting the Corps on the work, both for the New York, New Jersey HATS program, but also the other projects that the Corps is doing around the city. So South Shore Staten Island, a couple of projects in Jamaica Bay, different from what Lisa and her team does. And so, yeah. So overall, so my Bureau, again, we have these three big buckets, and then part of our biggest thing we'll be doing is collaborating internally within DEP and across our agency partners, kind of to determine what our kind of coastal defense will be for the city.
have this opportunity to represent the National Park Service here today. And I want to take a briefly reintroduce you, or maybe for some of you, introduce you to Gateway National Recreation Area. It was established in 1972 as one of the first urban national parks. And it consists of properties ranging from Jamaica Bay and Brooklyn and Queens over through Staten Island, and includes also the Sandy Hook Peninsula and northern New Jersey. About 433 units in the national park system with 9 million visitors each year. Gateway is the 4th most visited national park in that system. And I think that's something that a lot of us appreciate. Within the park, you can enjoy a wide variety of experience. You can experience nature, cultural resources, as well as recreation. So let's focus in now on Jamaica Bay, which is beautifully right behind us here. In our Jamaica Bay unit, you're going to find 6 of our 9 historic districts. And I think the history aspect might be something that many of us don't think a lot about when we think of Gateway. And we have resources that help to conserve our military, maritime, aviation, and recreation heritage, as well as architecture, archaeology, and ethnography. You can also come out and just recreate and have fun. And that might include for you going on the trails at the Jamaica Bay Wildlife Refuge to birdwatch or to enjoy the flora and the fauna. You might go to the North 40 or to the grasslands at Floyd Bennett Field to do the same. Maybe you want to bike the historic runways over at Floyd Bennett Field or go on the historic boardwalk over at Reese Park. There's all kinds of things to do, and if you're not into exploring it on your own, I invite you to come to one of our ranger-led programs or one of the partnership-led programs. And 2 of the great experiences each year are the Horseshoe Crab Festival and the Shorebird Festival each year. So now, talking about the topic of the day, innovation. And so for the Park Service, in Jamaica Bay in particular, but really throughout the park, a lot of our innovation comes from working with our partners. So rather than focusing on one thing, I decided I'd like to try to celebrate some of the innovation milestones that we've had in Jamaica Bay over the last 20 years. And so in 2003, the Park Service undertook a small restoration project, just 2 acres, over at Big Egg Marsh. And that was really a proof of concept demonstration for doing restoration in Jamaica Bay. And it was done in a location that you could walk up to. We can go and see that it was happening. Then fast forward to 2006, and that was really the first cementing of the Army Corps, New York City, New York State, and the Park Service working collaboratively on large-scale marsh restoration over at Allers Point. And that project demonstrates that sometimes necessity is the mother of innovation. And so on that particular project, we designed it. It was designed to conserve existing marsh. But when the building started, it was realized that some of that existing hummocks of marsh were going to be at a really low elevation and surrounded by higher elevations, which weren't totally fleshed out in the planning phase. So there was a decision made on the fly to excavate those, set them aside, put sand in, increase the elevation. And so using a hummock technique for reestablishing vegetation and giving a jump start to benthic communities occurred with that project. Going ahead again, then in 2012, there was an agreement between New York City and the Department of Interior to work collaboratively, not to think about our boundaries, but think about the system. And the first end product that came out of that was in 2013, when New York City and the Park Service selected Brooklyn College to establish and to manage the Science and Resiliency Institute at Jamaica Bay. And that's really been a catalyst for linking up science, agencies, and communities in Jamaica Bay. And we can't forget going forward to Shirley Chisholm State Park, I think is another milestone, and I don't want to take Leslie's thunder, but there's a lot that goes into having a state park being established in a national park on property that New York City invested heavily in to make ready for being a public space and still continues to manage and maintain as an infrastructure for landfills. So that's really a celebration that happened. And then I just want to touch real briefly on, and I know there'll be a talk later today on the West Pond Living Shoreline. And that was a project where we had the JBRPC, a private entity, funding and managing the planning and construction and continuing with the adaptive management of that site and the collaboration between NPS. And I think one of the things that in working from the Park Service, we're part of a national entity. And so thinking about doing things, we're thinking about that larger national umbrella. And I know sometimes some folks in this room might think that's an impediment, but I think the push to do things in ways that we are doing it incrementally, we've learned from it, and we're doing it in ways that if it doesn't work, we're not left with something we can't live with, is also a really important thing to think about.
Our mission basically is to give people opportunities all across the state, opportunities for safe, enjoyable recreation in places that are well stewarded and where you can also learn about the place that you're in. We are 100% the underdog here in New York City, and boy do I love that, because it gives us a chance to work with all the phenomenal people up here, oopsie, thank you, sorry, and everybody in the room to create create great collaboration like Dan's providing here, to just make our places. We have 8 state parks in the 5 boroughs. It is my pride and joy to be able to say that we have 2 bookending different parts of Jamaica Bay. Terri, I stole your map, and I made the 2 state parks, I gave them hot pink banners, just so they really jump out across the page. As Patti mentioned, I'm going to riff right off of you, thank you very much, our partner. The innovation of our Shirley Chisholm State Park is that it happened, is that it is open. And the innovation is that it took the unfailing vision, cooperative spirit, problem solving, dedicated brilliance all day, every day of the National Park Service, of the City of New York Department of Environmental Protection, John McLaughlin, I'm looking at you, and others, of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, all hands on deck. The idea was born inside of a larger state initiative to do a bunch of stuff to give better access to recreation and park and open space opportunities to people in central Brooklyn, from the top of the borough to the bottom of the borough. We did a lot. Happy to give you all the details on that, but I don't have time right now. But the crowning moment of that initiative was realizing that we had a massive opportunity to open up a new state park. It was sparked by realizing the property was there, and then it was fueled by a, relatively speaking, very small but utterly significant private investment, thank you JBRPC, to create a thing called the Vision Book. This Vision Book was delivered to the then governor, and it unlocked ultimately $50 million worth of investment to make Shirley Chisholm. It was a very fast and very unprecedented push. The park was conceived of, designed, built, and opened within 18 months. Then the pandemic hit. Then we made phase 2 all the while. In, I think it was 2021, but I'm gonna have to fact check this. We hit 1 million visitors. That's how important parks are to every single person, right? And that's how important parks are, and it doesn't matter who owns them, right? That's why we're all up here on the dais. Parks just really, really matter. The pandemic proved that in quadruplicate. So the innovation is that it happened. The innovation is always leveraging every single resource to grow into something bigger and better, and then resulting in an incredible give back to the community. A community that in this case waited a long time. Oh, I forgot, okay, good, I did change the slide. All right, so the other thing is, oopsie, that we have this surprise park. How many of you have heard of Bayswater Point State Park? I think. Okay, we're getting there, right? So this is our sweet little, not so secret, but very sleepy, quiet, serene gem on the southeastern corner of the bay. our innovation here is that after, let's see, it's been a state park for about 30 years, and for the past 10 years, we have fully recognized how the park is disappearing into the bay because of erosion. And so we have inch by inch, step by step, through a variety of really homespun resources, partnerships with folks up here, and ultimately a big push. Our innovation is, starting next year, we're doing a complete soup to nuts shoreline stabilization, living shoreline project. This park is a property, it's 12 acres. It has a shoreline that is already teeming with ribbed mussels. They love it out there. They're making that water so clean and so pure. And that's a good thing. That's a good start. Our project will take a while because it includes many phases of really getting rid of the invasives. So that takes years to do, probably 3. We're making a huge recreational plus for the park too, because most people go out there to either bird watch planes from Kennedy right across the bay, or go fishing. We're making a beautiful fishing pier. It'll be safe, it'll be accessible. So the park is getting, and by the way, this is a public announcement of this project. Again though, I have to thank JBRPC, because without their assistance on the design side, helping to support the design, this wouldn't have happened. The money to fund the project is coming from all quarters. It's a $15 million project, so I'll be inviting you all to come to our community sessions and come see the park. Thank you.
Amazing. My slides are not as fun. I don't have many pictures. Sorry. It's mostly just going over. One, I'm from DEC. My name is Jackie, and for those who don't know, the mission of DEC, and I'm paraphrasing here for those who can't read, but it's to protect, improve, conserve the natural resources of New York State for the people in the state. Specifically, I am a marine biologist, which means my focus is to do this for the marine, the estuarine, and the anadromous resources of New York State. And then even more specifically, no more slides, I am a marine biologist here in New York City for the state, and so our main focus for my team is to look at the tidal wetlands of the state in New York City. And when I saw the first question, I was stumped a little bit. DEC is a regulatory agency, which does mean that I don't get the joy of planning any projects of my own. Mostly what I've done is, we do have some property in North Basin. We've gone out and we restored a little bit of it, but it was, very by the book. High marsh plants go where high marsh plants go. Spartina goes where Spartina should fare the best, and we moved on. So I am quite jealous of being here and seeing all the projects that are happening. I mean, fishing pier for Bayswater Point State Park is amazing, and so I guess the points where we do touch on these projects is, as a regulatory agency, looking at the proposals, making sure they don't run afoul of the New York State environmental conservation law. But at the same time, we also get to see all the innovative techniques and ideas that are coming from these proposals. And so, like thin layer placement, looking at matrix and their modular building of riprap and living shoreline components, those, each time they come across our table, they add into and they feed into the conversations that the team is having locally in our New York City regional office with Kings Park, which is where Marines Albany is based, but also upstate Albany, to make sure that the rules and the regulations that are currently written don't stand in the way of progress and innovation for the protection of the natural resources of New York State. And so they feed into, and then we make sure that new policies are coming out, if there are any things that we can change, the way that we are kind of interpreting the regulations, that we don't stand in the way of progress. And so I know government movement is quite slow sometimes, and everybody wishes it could be faster, especially with sea level going the way it is, speeds at which it is rising. But I do want everybody to know that the innovation that is coming from partners and other agencies, we are taking them into consideration. We do look at them. For myself, my favorite part of my day is when like a monitoring report for the end of the year comes in, and I get to see, maybe we should be looking at the layer placement a bit more, not just saying, oh, it's a pilot, we can't do it. We can push back against kind of how the rules have been set and say, well, there's more data now, there's more research, there's more backing to it being a feasible way of moving forward. And so I'm having written many of these reports, but prior to joining DC, I know they can be cumbersome and a bit of a headache to get through, but I just want you to know that there are people reading it, I'm reading it, the team is reading it, and it does go into the development and the adaptation of the policies that are coming out, the regulations that are in the pipelines. And so please keep writing them so I get to read them. Great.
We're going to jump to the next question. So we've talked about Jamaica Bay. It's 44 square miles, right? We've established that 170 miles of coastline, 44 square miles. That's twice the size of Manhattan. And that area includes coastal parks and beaches. It includes the fringing wetlands, vast wetlands within the interior of Jamaica Bay, and it includes the open water of Jamaica Bay, which is, of course, parkland as well, as Patti showed on the map. This vast area is challenging to manage in a dense urban environment, but the size and complexity of Jamaica Bay parklands have also afforded, perhaps even required, as you've already heard here today, incredible opportunities for collaboration. So this question is how do you collaborate with others in Jamaica Bay? You personally and or your agencies. Can you highlight a particular benefit of collaboration that surprised you, and what was the outcome? And we can go in any order here. Anyone want to chime in to go first?
I know for the Corps of Engineers, everything that we do has a sponsor, a local sponsor, and not only contributing funding in a cost share that everyone is invested, but working with all the different agencies. And we thank DEC from a regulatory standpoint to be flexible and open-minded in the future as we advance our projects. But I think that the partnerships and the collaboration are so important, and we've got things called project delivery team. And so for my Marsh Islands, I have Patti, who actually joins the meetings. John McLaughlin just stepped out, but New York City DEP has been one of our largest sponsors for so many projects in Jamaica Bay, funding the advancement, not only design, feasibility, design, and construction moving forward. We have so many projects. I know the graphic where it had all the projects, I didn't even mention half of them that we're working on collaboratively, not only on the whole entire right side of Jamaica Bay for coastal storm risk management, the Rockaway Back Bay features and the harbor and tributaries study, the hats, but having so much input, working with our partners and our NGOs. I mean, Dan, coming up with ideas and making sure that we're staying on track. And I want to be able to integrate people as well as we implement projects, and the lessons learned from everyone is so important in bringing that expertise to the table. So there's just, and then also, not only the money from the cost share, but all of the people that really are invested in projects to move forward, the movement and trying to get the support from the congressionals. I think that's like super important. But I can't stress that enough. I mean, working with Spring Creek North right now, New York City Parks is carrying the weight, it's their park, but working hand in hand with advancing these projects, I think is so important. It definitely takes a village.
I just just want to re-emphasize exactly what Lisa said and take it down a step below. We all are working together, not competitively, for resources, because we all really, really, really care about this geography, whether it's Jamaica Bay or any other parts of New York City, because we all work about the entirety of New York City. So I think with that as the floor, it just carries through every single thing Lisa said, things that might seem smaller, like writing recommendations or referrals for grant applications for the other entity, right? We do that all a lot, and it all adds up to collaboration from the bottom to the top.
So I want to go back from a couple decades to just also flag how important advocacy has been in decades past, and even having our park system around from the New York City side around Jamaica Bay. So hundreds, well over 500 acres acquired since the 90s that wouldn't have been possible without Audubon and Trust for Public Land and that kind of advocacy that continues to bring it sort of down to the ground. The advocacy on a sort of neighborhood scale that Jamaica Bay Eco Watchers has done, the Sunset Cove in particular comes to mind, as it really is critical to have the community know what's in their backyard, know where there's an opportunity, know what the land history is, and that kind of collaboration is critical. And then with researchers, we've really benefited from the work that researchers in the SUNY system have done looking at sparrows and the secretive marsh sparrows and Idlewild, their understanding and ability to communicate what habitat requirements are in the salt marsh is like incredibly motivating for us, and I think it gave us that drive to say, okay, we've got this technique, thin layer sediment placement. Where do we need to apply it for what purposes, for what species, and that's so collaboration on all fronts. Just what I want to emphasize.
I'm going to echo a little bit of what the last three have said. Well, and also what Jamie said too in her intro is, so my role and day to day is really making sure these projects keep going. And so it is really getting stuck in the weeds of the doing and the responding and to the troubleshooting. But that troubleshooting is really based in collaboration. Within our internal agencies, and particularly with our partners, and the Army Corps is a big one that I've just stepped into specifically for the coastal storm risk projects. But also I just want to highlight the long collaboration that DEP and Parks have also had on the Blue Belt system, predominantly in Staten Island, but again echoing to the work with John McLaughlin's for the restoration projects. And so the one thing too, another part about me being here as part of the panel and learning from this panel and learning from all of you is my hope is as the Bureau of Coastal Resilience moves forward is that it is really using that knowledge on the ground, those local resources that folks know, the harbor and their coastline, and really incorporating that into our coastal storm projects to protect the harbor and the folks that live here.
I was just going to say that, part of collaboration is also, the benefit is the different perspectives, but it's also in working collaboratively to kind of challenge each other, to kind of push the envelope, to question, to learn from each other, but also by that bigger perspective, thinking about that we all have very different missions, we have stakeholders with very different vested interests, and so it's that very complex network of thinking about things that I think really helps us to get to some of our best answers, solutions, and approaches.
I agree. I think the biggest is the collaboration across all groups, city, federal, state, and even local communities, especially local communities who know their area the best. But then also the joy, I think, of a lot of the Jamaica Bay focused projects is that they are focused on restoration, and that ties beautifully with the DEC mission of protecting, conserving, and improving the natural areas for the people. And so restoring and adding in public access wherever you can just makes it all come together so very nicely.
You can see why I have the best, no offense to our other panel moderator, but I have the best job right now. All right, we have another question for our panelists. Let me put these on so I can get this right. All right, so while we at JDRPC think that Jamaica Bay is the center of the universe, I mean, right? Wink. We know that your agencies have much broader mandates and connections with colleagues across the city, state, and nation. In terms of innovative solutions and approaches, what are the superstar projects that you look to as models? And what examples can we use? What examples inspire you and can inspire us for continued improvement, restoration, and protection of Jamaica Bay? Anyone want to start with your superstar project?
So it's not one particular superstar, but one Cape Cod National Seashore, the Hatches Harbor project is incrementally doing hydrologic restoration. And as part of that, they're really looking and pushing it for our agency and the Park Service, particularly in our Northeast parks, at looking at carbon sequestration and expanding opportunities through amendments of soil materials to be able to increase carbon sequestration, but also looking at how to potentially capitalize on that within a national park. And because one of the challenges that we all face for being able to enhance our ecosystems is a funding stream. And whereas there are programs set up for 2 to 5 years of project funding, that long-term adaptive management funding is really hard to come by. And so potentially by looking at some type of monetization, a carbon credit bank or something like that, those types of opportunities might provide funding streams not only to expand what we can do, but also to give us longer-term capacity to help to maintain these major investments that are made in project restoration.
I just want to hit on, this is just basically written from you, I guess, on the adaptive management and monitoring funding aspect. You know, the Corps does a project, we do 5 years of monitoring and adaptive management, and then we turn it over to the local sponsor to maintain in perpetuity. And I think, like, the Marsh Islands require a different solution. We need to be able to try, we always think about, everybody always says about re-nourishment cycles, being able to continually keep pace and come back to that marsh island. And so I know that that's a struggle that we have, that we try to marry up with a navigation program, and it's a one and done. And so I know I want to try to think about ways to start like using thin layer placement and trying to tackle that issue. If we can work together on that, to try to find a solution for the marsh islands that's more long-term. It's not just building one island and moving forward. But just to answer, I guess, the question, that was just totally aside. I think that, I guess the most recent superstar project, and I'm just going to say that the West Pond that we hear about, whether it was hopefully completely successful, but then I know that there's been a lot of lessons learned. So I'm counting on you guys to be able to share that research and that data collected so that we either carry it forward, improve on those particular aspects that worked in West Pond and some that didn't. And so to basically improve our designs on our future marsh islands. Thanks.
Well, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm going to have to say Shirley Chisholm State Park. Superstar for all the reasons I already mentioned, but also, I mean, just in a nutshell, like the best of all possible government project, right? It's like humming beautifully together, and not only did we make the park, but we created it with a dedicated new money budget to operate it and staff it. So it wasn't just, oh, here, run this new park using your existing resources. That was kind of like in the super weeds of government work, like, oh no, we're not doing this unless it comes with this. And it's a very expensive park to maintain. 407 acres, all of which have to be actively maintained. So that's Shirley. Go there.
I would be remiss in not mentioning, DEP's a much larger mission than the coastal storm risk. And just this week, the long-range vision plan was released, so please go check it out. DEP obviously provides drinking water for all of the city of New York and 9 million residents, and that itself is quite a feat with the way that is done. So check out DEP's overall water production as innovative. But also I wanted to add, as the city looks forward in our coastal risk projects, also for us and for those that have worked on the coastal risk projects that have come around, it's always really great to look back and recognize that we can do really big things, and as we're moving forward, being able to do big things with the significant collaboration. So yeah.
I'll just say I found this a really tough question to ponder. I think because, perhaps when I was younger, I'd go to conferences and I'd say, oh, that project is so cool, and if only we could do it here. And now, having been in New York so long and gotten to know so many different projects, I really find that there are elements of, most of the projects that we do that are really stellar. So, as I already mentioned, the small, little pilot project we did at Hook Creek, I think was, a really great example and seed for more work. The Garrison Creek project with the Army Corps was, in some ways, it felt like one of our last sort of low-hanging fruit projects, where it was like, yeah, we'll remove this fill and it's pretty clean and put it here, and we'll get 40 acres of salt marsh and grassland. And there are also really impressive, more urban wetland design projects around the city that I go to again and again, probably because I like by them, but they're like at Gansevoort or maybe Hunters Point South, where I just see the people really using those parks, and then examples of the offshore breakwaters of Staten Island. I think that was an example of just a really well-funded project where so much research could go into that. So those are I think elements we want to emulate. I think Sunset Cove was a fantastic, and again, I mentioned it before, but community collaboration and a way in which we were able to use our native plant expertise and our wetlands expertise, and I'll shout out to Rebecca Zwadik, who manages our wetlands team, having done so much incredible work. She's the point person for all these projects, basically. And lastly, there was one more I was going to mention in terms of innovation. I guess I would say that the role that the Science and Resiliency Institute plays, and Jamaica Bay Community Park, Rockaway Park Conservancy, that network of relationships, kind of going back to the second questions in terms of collaboration, I think building those relationships of being able to know who knows what where. You don't have to know it all, but you can have a gap or a shortcome in your project resources, for example, and this is going to Spring Creek, and know, okay, but there's a watershed plan that DEP has to do. They have to probably do this. I need this. Maybe we can work together, and then we can create a stellar project.
In general, any superstar project in my mind is anyone that gets the public to the coastline. I think without community buy-in, without people caring about the environment, I mean, we can plan as much Spartina as we want, but it won't do anything if people don't care about it. So kind of a cheesy answer, but anyone that gets people out to the waters.
That's an excellent.
I just thought of really a moment in time that was a superstar project, and not because I coordinated it, but it was basically taking, we called it the Jamaica Bay Multi-Project Initiative, where it was an example, and I know my boss, Josie Boat, I have to mention him, he's always talking about, okay, how do we use as much sand that's being dredged in the region for as many beneficial uses as possible. And back in, granted this was 2010, I believe, where we the last dredging in the Ambrose Channel did the Yellow Bar, Blackwall, Rulers Bar, Marsh Islands. And so first we did Plum Beach right before Sandy hit, saved the Bell Parkway, moved the pipeline head on over to, into Jamaica Bay, but getting 3 Marsh Islands done. And I guess a real high point from that, we built Yellow Bar as a wetland project, but Blackwall and Rulers Bar, New York City DEP and New York State DEC funded the placement of that material and replaced the material, and then there were various groups. It was led by New York City DEP and the Littoral Society and Eco Watchers, like bringing the communities for planting Blackwall. Was it Blackwall or Blackwall and Rulers Bar? I mean, the idea of bringing in the communities as well in those projects to invest, it's just, I think that one was like, that was my superstar.
That just reminded me of another thing I really wanted to mention, which is related to post-Sandy, the reconstruction of the boardwalk and federal funds at the time that allowed us to do that. And then I think effective project management, and maybe a little luck, I wasn't involved, but there was a leftover FEMA funding, which then brought funding to parks on the Bay side. And I mentioned that partly because when discussing great projects, my colleague Christy King mentioned being thrilled with the milling trees planting at Rockaway Community Park, which really transformed a large area there. And we cross fingers, we just got, I think, good bids back for construction at Rockaway Community Park, where we'll be creating the living shoreline and hopefully creating access, and that I hope will be the next star for us.
Thank you. So I hope you all have your bicycles tuned up, your subway cards ready to go, your ferry tickets. There's a lot of places to visit.